So in this video we're going to look at some of the worded questions in algebra. These questions are normally the types of questions that you'll find later on in the exam. They're a wee bit tougher and they normally combine your knowledge of a number of different topics. So they might involve things like perimeter and area. So it's important that you've watched all the videos to date around topics such as perimeter and area, and of course all our algebraic videos, particularly those involving solving quadratic equations, because we're going to be setting up a few quadratic equations here. So we'll get stuck into the examples. The first one, again, as their worded example explains, Bob is A years old. So we don't have a numerical value for Bob's age. We're told that his age is A. So I'm going to write down this information so we can set up expressions for him and his siblings' ages. So Bob's age is just A. All right. His brother Jim is 3 years younger. So Jim, his age, because we don't know Bob's age, we can only say that he is 3 years younger. Therefore, his age is A, take away 3. So I'm setting this information out in a way that I can understand, okay, and a way that's clear to the examiner. The product of their ages is 180. So product in algebra means multiply. So if I was to multiply their two ages, A times A take away 3, that would give me 180. So the first part of this question is actually asking us to set up an equation to represent this information. Well, I can do that if I know the product is 180. So if and again, I'm going to use brackets for this because, as I explained earlier, we're going to end up with a quadratic. A all times A minus 3, and hence why I'm using brackets, because I'm going to multiply everything in this bracket by A. I have to multiply the entire two amounts, is equal to 180. So that's the first part. That is our equation. We can actually leave it like that there. We don't need to multiply anything out just yet, but we are going to end up with a quadratic equation, because the second part is therefore asking us to solve the equation to find Bob's age. Okay, so the first thing we'll have to do is multiply out the brackets. Okay, so A times A is A squared. A times minus 3 is minus 3A, is equal to 180, and this is why it's important to have watched our videos involving quadratic equations and how to solve them. We're going to take everything to the left hand side, making the right hand side equal to 0. So if I want to make the right hand side equal to 0, I have to subtract 180. And remember, balancing an equation, if I subtract 180 from the right, I have to do so from the left as well. So I end up with A squared minus 3A minus 180 is equal to 0. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to factorize. Okay, I can also use the quadratic formula if I want to solve this, but I know that this is the type of equation that factorizes an exam. There's little clues as to whether or not to use the quadratic formula or not. For example, if I was to say give your answer to a certain number of decimal places. Another clue about this particular equation is that it's to do with age, and we normally use whole numbers when we're dealing with age. Okay, so I have, therefore, to get A squared, the first terms is A and A, and remember my product is minus 180, so I need two numbers together, the multiplier together to give me minus 180, but multiply, or that add or subtract to give me a sum of minus 3. So the sum is therefore minus 3. Okay, so that would indicate that one number needs to be positive and one number needs to be negative. Okay, so numbers that multiply together to give me minus 180. Okay, there's no real point in starting from 1 and 180 and 2 and 90 and so on and so forth. We need numbers that are going to be closer together. Okay, so if I was to look at something along the lines of numbers that are closer together in the middle. So for example, I would know that 10 and 18 is a combination. However, the difference between 10 and 18, there's no way of getting a 3. I could also look at beyond that. I know 15 goes into this, and you can check your calculator. 15 goes into that 12 times, so I could have plus 12 and minus 15. So that's going to work. But if I have plus 12 and minus 15, I just have to double check, does that give me a sum of minus 3? And it does indeed. So I've got plus 12 and minus 15. Okay, so again, why it's important to watch the videos on solving quadratics a plus 12 equals 0, make each bracket equal to 0 because the entire equation is equal to 0. A minus 15 is equal to 0, so over here I would have a is equal to minus 12. Now that's important. Again, refer back to the question. It's to do with age. We cannot have a negative age, so that one is out. And this is therefore a equals positive 15, so that is my answer for a. Now always just double check to see what the question's actually asking. This is asking us for Bob's age, so Bob's age is just a, so therefore my answer is a, which is equal to 15. The reason I'm saying that is because if it had asked us for Jim's age, I would have to make sure I did a take away 3. Jim's age would have been 12. Okay, so always refer back to what the question is actually asking us for. Moving on to our next example, a rectangular garden is 10 meters longer than wide. Okay, the area of the garden is 2,000 meters squared. Find the perimeter of the garden. So again, why it's important to have good knowledge of our other subjects. This has a wee bit of area and perimeter in it. So if I draw out a rough rectangle, we don't know any of the dimensions thus far. We just know that the overall area is 2,000 meters squared, and I know that the area of a rectangle is length times width. We know that we have the width, and we're told that the length is 10 meters longer than the width, so that's going to be W plus 10. That's the width, and from this it's 10 meters longer than wide. Okay, I can use my knowledge of area to form an equation. So area being length times width, so W times W plus 10 is going to be equal to this area, which is 2,000. So similar to the previous question, W times W plus 10 is equal to 2,000. Now there's no parts A and B in this question. I have to work out the value for W as well as W plus 10 because I'm doing perimeter. Perimeter is all the sides added together. So once we get W, that's not going to be the end of this question. So multiply the bracket. W times W is W squared. W times 10 is 10W is equal to 2,000. Okay, I then have to remember that I'm bringing everything to the right hand side, to the left hand side, so I have to subtract 2,000 from the right hand side. I therefore have to do that to the left as well. So I end up with W squared plus 10W minus 2,000 equals 0. So now I factorise. Again, I can use the quadratic formula if I want to, but I don't need to. It's equal to 0, so the only way to get W squared is W and W, and I'm looking for minus 2,000, so this is my product is minus 2,000 and my sum is plus 10. So again, no point in starting at 1 and 2,000, 2 and 1,000 and working my way that way. Start fairly in the middle. I'm going to use the fact that I know 4 5s are 20, so therefore 40 times 50. So it's going to be some combination of 40 and 50, because that will give me a sum of 10. I just have to decide which is positive and which is negative. Well, it's going to be minus 40 plus 50, because minus 40 plus 50 is positive 10. So minus 40 plus 50. Again, I make each bracket equal to 0, but I can rule out the negative value because we can't have a negative length. So W minus 40 equals 0, so therefore W is going to be equal to 40. Okay. Now this will give me W is minus 50, so that value is going to be totally irrelevant. So remember, this isn't the end of the question, as I explained earlier. Let's refer back to up here. So W is 40. Perimeter is all the sides added up. So if that's 40, that's 40. Opposite sides are the same in a rectangle. This is W plus 10, so this is 50, and that's 50. And then I add up all the sides. 50 plus 50 is 100, plus 40 plus 40 gives me 180. And our units was in meters, so the perimeter is 180 meters. Okay, so these are two examples which is completed of worded questions involving quadratic equations. I'll post some more for you to have a wee try, and again, the best way to improve with these is just plenty of practice. Anything you're unsure about, just ask.